Folks, hello and welcome to Tavern Chat. I'm your host, Eric Tenkar, your bartender in the OSR, your main proprietor at the Tenkars Tavern blog. So, listen, there's a lot of discussion going on uh, recently, not just, well, Elon Musk, because Elon was referring to some comments said on Twitter/X about the 50-year history, the making of D&D, in which certain things are said about Gary Gygax and others of that time frame, and there's been pushback, and I'm not even going to address the uh, dismissiveness of the concerns of Grognods, but something came to my attention, and I said, you know what? I got to get this in context. So, and by the way, this is available at Warehouse 23. I think it was $3. I know cover price says 250. My God. So this is the Space Gamer issue 51 from 1982. The magazine of adventure games. Okay. Well, why do I have this up here? Because I think it's going to be part of the argument. I think it's certainly a relevant part of the argument for whatever side you're taking. I'm not even sure what side I'm on at this point. Um, because now page two is the uh, index/contents page, whatever. Publisher Steve Jackson, editor Forrest Johnson. Now remember those two names. Remember those two names. Steve Jackson is Steve Jackson. He's the same Steve Jackson we all know from GURPS and Man to Man and Dungeon Fantasy and Car Wars and Ogre. He's brought a lot to the hobby, right? So, and he's the publisher. He gives the in this issue. All right, we lied. One of the articles listed in April's not in next issue box was Magic and Car Wars. If you check page 10, you'll find it. We probably ought to be ashamed of ourselves, but we're not. It's insane. Have fun. For you fantasy trip fans, we have handicapped characters in TFT. Adaptable to any RPG, this concept lets you start with a more powerful character without ruining game balance and encourages role playing. By the way, that's the article we're going to be looking at. But move on to the rest of the what's in this issue. Our game supplement this issue is School Holiday by Aaron Olston, designed for champions that turn supervillains loose in a junior high school. SF role players will find two articles this time around. Our cover story on big ships in space opera, and Mike Kurtik's designer notes on Star Patrol. I think Star Patrol was SPI, if I remember right. But I digress. So, here we go, page 6. Handicapped characters in TFT. And I think it's anywhere from like 1 to 4 or 5 points. The weakest, or least consequential handicaps are 1 point. So I guess we should dive right in, right? And check out those 1 point handicaps. Maybe I should go back for a second. See, the other handicaps at 1 point are gullible. Hey, mister, look behind you. Hard of hearing. What did you say? Miserly. Bah! I wouldn't give you 3 coppers for that thing. But no, those aren't the ones we're looking for. This is the one we're looking for. This is a 1 point handicap from 1982 Space Gamer for the fantasy trip. Here we go. Homosexual. And what is that little caption for homosexual? Oh, really, Brucey? Now, as a side note, for those that remember, the 1970s TV series, The Incredible Hulk, Dr. David Banner. Now, I always remembered it as Dr. Bruce Banner. Does it by gamma ray, turns into the Hulk. Why did they change it from Bruce to David? Because Bruce was seen as a name that was generally a homosexual name. So the fantasy trip, disadvantage, homosexual, is playing into that trope. This fellow is an obvious homosexual, a flaming faggot or butch dyke, if you will. Now, these are not my words. These are the words of, who was it at the top of this page? Hold on a second. These are the words of Forrest Johnson. Oh, wait. Forrest Johnson, he was, oh, look at that, the editor of Space Gamer. Steve was the publisher. So he's one above. So, and of course, the fantasy trip was Steve's game. Now, are we going to hold Steve accountable for something that was published 42 years ago? Has his name on it, right? He even refers to the article in that opening blurb. He refers to it. By the way, he gets a -1 reaction from characters of the same sex unless they themselves are homosexuals. With other homosexuals, he gets a +1 reaction because of the camaraderie of the gay community. The GM may wish to allow a 10% chance or so that a given NPC is homosexual. So now, you can take this article different ways. You can come out and say, well, this just shows that homosexuals were being represented in gaming 42 years ago. Look, there's an article in the Space Gamer. Okay. You can also look at it and go, it's being given as a disadvantage, and they're referring to flaming faggot and butch dykes. Again, not my words. Apparently, these are the words of Forrest Johnson. Now, I don't even think back in that time. I don't remember. I would never. You might have said somebody was gay, and I was a kid. I was a teenager. You, I would have gotten my mouth slapped if I referred to somebody as a flaming faggot. I wouldn't have known what a butch dyke was, honestly. But this is in one of the premier gaming magazines of the 80s from Steve Jackson, who is still publishing games 40 plus years later. We don't hear any uproar, right? I don't hear any uproar. Now, if Gary was still alive, would he still be the target that he is? This is the question that I'm whether you find this offensive or not. I happen to find it offensive because of the language that's used and the way it refers to it as a disadvantage. It's like, yeah, it's kind of like being hard of hearing or gullible. But why are examples like this not being thrown around as much? Is it because, uh, in the grand scheme of things, Steve Jackson Games, as much as Munchkin has made them money, is irrelevant for a company like the size of WotC Hasbro? Or is it because people aren't looking? I still generally believe in the argument of these things are a product of their time. And it doesn't mean that you have to be proud of everything in the past. I wouldn't be proud of this. If I was Steve, I would come out and disown this. But it's available right now. And I'm not saying it shouldn't be available, but you stumble across that, you're not expecting it. That's something, right? So maybe these disclaimers, and I'm not saying the disclaimer in the 50th anniversary book, that one, it paints with a very wide brush. But if there is a product that has something that could be considered offensive, even back then, maybe a small heads up would have been appropriate. I don't know. Tell me what you think. Is this an actual issue? Is this a product of the time? Even if it was a product of the time, it was still problematic. I hate that fucking word. My God, that word should be put in a bonfire and burned. But there's a lot here, and I don't have the answers. I'm just showing you what's available. So, folks, on that note, next live stream will be Wednesday night. Not sure who our special guest will be, if any, but we'll see. And be safe, be well. God bless. Roll those dice, roll them well. I'll catch you all tomorrow. Be good.